My parents were high school sweethearts. Well, in 1964, they turned on the Ed Sullivan Show, and something happened that changed their life forever. They witnessed the Beatles for the first time. Well, from that point on, they are the biggest Beatles fans I've ever seen. Well, 64 came and went, and then the Beatles broke up in 1970. It devastated them. Then my father was drafted in the war, and my brother was born, and I was born. And then this life moved on. Well, one regret they always had was they never got to see a Beatle live. So let's fast forward. So I became a nurse in 2001. My dad is a nurse too. We work the night shift. He worked the night shift for years, and so did I. Well, I was in a patient's room, and I believe this was like maybe 2000, the late 2008, 2010, somewhere around there. And come on, The Late Show with David Letterman. David Letterman, and if you know any of the history, he did a show at the Ed Sullivan Theater, the same place that everyone witnessed the Beatles for the first time in 1964. Well, Paul McCartney was on, and he was talking about doing a world tour. And he wound up playing a few Beatles songs, kind of just reminiscing about 1964. And I looked up on the computer, and he was coming to Boston at Fenway Park. Well, I called my wife up and said, "Hey, find out if there's any tickets." She did. She came. She went online, and yes, there were tickets. And she said, "Yeah, do you want me to book them?" And I said, "Wait a minute." So I called my father up, who was working that night too. His job at that time was at a local nursing home, literally like 2 miles from me. And I said, "Dad, you have to get this specific night off." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "It's a surprise." So he said, "Okay, I will." So Lori, my wife, booked 4 tickets for she and I and my 2 parents, so 4 of us. And that day came, and we went down to Boston, and they still had no idea what we were doing. And so we get into line to go in, and then my mother starts noticing Beatles/Paul McCartney shirts, and she starts crying. She says, "I know what we're doing." And I said, "What?" And she goes, "Are we going to see Paul McCartney?" And I said, "Yes." And then my dad starts crying. So we go in, and then here comes Paul McCartney on stage. And I witnessed my parents becoming teenagers again. And I witnessed my parents watching the man they had adored all these years for the first time. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life.